want to know which planet was causing your suffering? How about Earth?
Hey everyone, Brand Blakes here, back with a new Chaos Zero Nightmare video. For today's video, another low effort content slot video because I'm obviously again away for the holidays and I'm just recording a bunch of stuff to pace throughout the next 3 weeks. This is going to be the meme tier list I have, and what I mean by memes is just like builds that aren't necessarily super powerful but are really funny to watch and build towards and might give you some more reasons to actually push and play something else other than just chasing rankings, because in my opinion the ranking dungeon is kind of a waste of effort because it is kind of what involves a lot of burnout and a lot of distress of the game, whereas being able to build something that is funny to play and watch even if it is only just once, for me at least, gives me that dopamine hit that I need to continue playing and testing stuff out. So without further ado, this time I won't be pulling up the characters one at a time just because I think it's better to go down the list for this, just so that people have a much easier time of going through. First of all, we have the vouched memes. These are going to be characters that have pretty funny things that, okay, again, these builds that I'm going to talk about are not going to be meta at all. They're not going to be particularly powerful when it comes to like actually clearing content in like a meaningfully and objectively strong way. They're just really funny to do, and for some of these memes, you'll have seen the videos already on my channel. And then for other characters, like for example Maribell, specifically, I've seen people execute it, but I personally haven't gotten around to actually producing the build myself. But I know it works. I've seen someone else pull it off. So with Chizuru, this one doesn't really need much fanfare. If you somehow found my channel and found this video but you haven't watched everything else there is a Chizuru video that I've made where I essentially spent like 50 turns stacking up her Shadow of the Moon plus, and then I let it rip and it did 365 hits, and it was just really funny because the boss bugged out. It took a while for all the effects to happen, and if I had more time before I left home for the holidays, I was going to remake that video, except I was going to purposely not upgrade it to Shadow of the Moon plus and only do Shadow of the Moon, because the difference in animation between Shadow of the Moon and Shadow of the Moon plus is that with Shadow of the Moon generically, Chizuru actually swings her sword, and so the idea was going to be that I was going to have her swing her sword like 500 times and just trap everyone in like a 3-minute animation spree of just her like swinging away until it ended, and then see if the boss bugged out again. But unfortunately, I don't have much time left with the game, so I've been recording videos instead of doing that test, and maybe it would have been better to record that video, but it is what it is. Basically, I probably should have talked about the meme and showed it off before I went on that tangent, but basically on Chizuru, again, this is pretty adjacent to some of the more meta builds on Chizuru, but if you don't know about this tech, this is going to be essentially going with the Tsukuyomi Epiphany that adds +2 hits to the next Shadow of the Moon or Shadow of the Moon plus used. Now, unlike the other +1 hit on Tsukuyomi, this one does stack properly, so if you use like 4 of these in one turn, you're adding 8 hits to the next Shadow of the Moon used or Shadow of the Moon plus used. And then obviously if you have 4 dupes of this card in your deck, you're getting +4 or +8 a turn. And then if you're just going for like the funny clip and the funny highlight, then you don't really need to get this Oni Hunt. But if you want to get like damage along with the hit count, then ideally you would get this top right Oni Hunt that gives you the most bang for your buck when it comes to amping up the damage rate of the Oni or of the Shadow of the Moon plus. So ideally for this build, all you need is going to be getting, obviously you don't need 4 dupes. Technically you don't even need 3 dupes, but you do need to, like, having more will make the time fly by faster because you'll need to have fewer turns. Basically you need to have as many of these Tsukuyomis as possible, ideally 4, so you can get +8 again, and then at least one of these Oni Hunts so you can get the satisfying damage number, like 1 million or something or higher on the top right, and then everything else is super optional. If you had a way to just like mod your deck and make it perfect, then ideally you would delete everything except for like Shadow of the Moon. Or like, yeah, just Shadow of the Moon, because I guess you obviously could keep Karmic Flames, but because you generally only need the first Shadow of the Moon, you don't need to upgrade the Shadow of the Moon plus if you're going for like the funniest, highest tier of like, haha, look at this go, and look how I broke the game. Because in the end, like, obviously, like, Shadow of the Moon plus is more time save because the animation for the slash is a lot faster than Chizuru herself flashing or slashing, and Karmic Flames does give you access to Shadow of the Moon plus, which again is more time saved. But in the end, like, if you're just kind of trying to cycle as fast as you can, you'd rather just have fewer cards in your deck. But obviously when you're playing this game, you can't delete everything, so ideally you would delete Bound at Dusk. You probably delete the Moon Slashes. Ironically enough, I think the shield is the one you want to save the most, so you have more sustain during the grinding phase in case your account's slightly weaker than mine, or you don't have as strong of a heart or as strong as a Mika deck to heal everything. So you'd have Spirit Ward Flame, Karmic Flame, Tsukiyomi, Oni Hunt, and then Shadow of the Moon, and then 4 copies of Tsukiyomi preferably. And then if you need to keep a card, I'd keep the Moon Slashes over the Bound at Dusk, just because Bound at Dusk, if you accidentally cast it, you'll run out of AP really fast, and that kind of breaks your run. But Moon Slash, if you accidentally cast that or misclick, it's not as big of a deal because it's just like 1 mana deal to who really cares about that. The next character, we'll talk about Orlea first because I actually pulled it off, and again, there is an example video of it on my YouTube channel. This is going to be the Swifty stacking, and much like the Tsukiyomi stacking for Chizuru, you're just going to be taking Growth Acceleration and taking the Swifty variant of Growth Acceleration, where if you are using this on a Swifty, you trigger the retain effect 3 times. Swifty is a card that when you trigger his retain effect, sadly you can't, oh, you can see him actually down here. When you trigger the retain effect on Swifty, you get plus 150% flat damage amount. So obviously with this Growth Acceleration, you're going to get plus 450%. And then if you have 4 of these, you're going to be getting plus, what's 4 times, like 450 times 4, I think is like 1800 damage a turn. And then obviously because this is a 1 mana spell, you do need to either have like AP supports such as Mika or Nia, or you get a Divine Epiphany on this. And if you're getting a Divine Epiphany on this, it's probably a little too expensive on the deck cost front. So I have another tier list, again, an accompanying tier list where I talk about the difficulty of pulling this off. I probably need to put this down here, or lay down here. But yeah, so I'll put this on the intro as well in case, like, you've probably already seen it if you're watching the video. But I need to adjust this really quickly, so I'll adjust this, and you'll see the adjusted version on the actual thing. But yeah, obviously Growth Acceleration costs a bit of mana, so you need AP to cast everything, which does mean you are kind of locked to getting Mika or Nia, which will slow down your access a bit. But otherwise, like, it is really fun stacking Orlea up to larger and larger numbers. And unlike Chizuru, like unlike a lot of spells in this game or cards in this game that are multi-hits, you get like a lot of small numbers and then it totals up to a really large number. With Orlea, you get the joy of just seeing a massive number at the very end that just like chunks your opponent. So obviously you get the dopamine hit of like seeing like a 1 million crit instead of like, oh, I did a million total after all those like 500 little stabs that Chizuru did. And everything else for Orlea is pretty optional. Like obviously you only need to get 1 Swifty. And interestingly enough, unlike Chizuru's Shadow of the Moon Plus, Orlea's Swifties will actually memorize how many times you retain the card. So as long as you start spamming retain on the original first Swifty you got, period, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't need to save the Growth Accelerations until you get the Swifty 3. You can start stacking on Swifty 1. So unironically, like, this is one of the easiest meme decks to build, because in the end, all you need is 1 correct epiphany, like literally just 1 correct epiphany, which is the Swifty retain effect, and then everything else can be whatever it needs, because you will eventually get a Swifty 3 over the many turns you're stacking, and so it doesn't matter. Like, you don't need to get the Swifty damage amount, because this damage amount and flat damage, they don't bounce off each other. This is only like, in the end, this is maybe like plus 100% damage overall, and you're stacking to numbers like plus 10,000% damage, right? So this is honestly irrelevant. So you just need like 1 of these. Like any growth sensor is totally fine. Any annoying, I prefer the annoyings that like deal multi hits. So this middle bottom one, just because again, certain bosses like the multi-hit is better for taking off certain debuffs or triggering certain like actions and achievements. So again, literally not important. You can take any of these, but it's just a multi-hit one is like technically the most flexible option. And then any of these growing creatures, ideally you take the like anything except for the one that keeps itself, and the one that keeps itself is gonna be the middle top. Every other growing creature transforms the card, so it's essentially an exhaust. Besides this middle top one, which will stay in your hand. So obviously you don't want that clutter for the most part, because you want to be drawing cards and doing other things. So you just want this to delete itself and give yourself a thinner deck so that you can draw into your growth accelerations more and more easily. So ideally, you would delete Will of Light, you delete the attack by minions, and you keep the healing to sustain if you need to for the content, and then everything else is optional besides Swifty growth acceleration, which becomes very funny, obviously. Maribell's memes are pretty straightforward. I think Maribell might actually belong to the meme as meta, but because Maribell herself is nowhere near meta, I'm going to say it's a vouched meme. And this vouched meme is going to be pretty straightforward. I referenced it in my previous tier list video if you've watched that. It's going to be shield stacking for Shelter Strike. Now, the main issue with Maribell on this meme is that Maribel herself does not bring a lot of shielding power. In fact, not many of the characters really have much shield. Hugo, or my bad, Magna and Khalipe, these two characters do give a decent amount of shielding in their kit. Magna, obviously we see her down here as well, meme concept. I've seen one video where Maribel got the shield pop off, but Magna, I've still didn't see anything. But Magna, like unlike Maribel, does have better like shielding options. So, like for Magna, like you can see like you get shield and vulnerable and get more shield gain for the enemies. Like that is something that Maribel lacks. So unfortunately, Maribel is a bit more difficult to build up. But unlike Magna, so I guess just like to jump ahead a little bit, Magna's shield damage is actually based on one of the epiphanies, so it is a bit hard to apply. And also, like, I don't know how this functions because I haven't seen it, but I know for a fact that Maribel's fixed damage can crit and does apply to weakness. So this number can get much higher. And so you don't need to dupe on Maribel if you want to go for like the singular fat slap. But if you want to get like a true quote-unquote one-shot with Maribel, you can dupe Shelter Strike because every other card in her kit is like really mediocre even for shield spamming. So you could arguably go for like one of these one-cost shields and just like her only shielding card for the most part. Like I think nothing else gives her like a scaling shield. I mean, obviously the Shelter attack does do that, but it's a fixed shield, so it does not interact with repos, it doesn't interact with actual shield gain buffs. You could dupe this, but I think the damage Maribel herself does is a lot lower than you would like it to be, so you're never getting much shield off of this, but the shield you're getting from OIC is going to be scaling off of a lot of other things, and also proccing other shielding buffs, whether it's from equipment or other buffs that exist. So you could either duplicate Shelter Strike or you can duplicate OIC, but in the end, like it's not really relevant. Your support for this Maribel one shot has to be from your other characters. So it will be a bit difficult to pop off, but thankfully there are certain things that will make it a little easier. For example, there is the unique accessory that drops from Foretold Ruins called Corrupted Core that does give you retain. So you can only get up to 60% retain, which means that you will never get a perfect shield. Like you'll never retain everything essentially, which means that there's only so much shield you can retain from turn to turn. I did the math, and you essentially cap out your retained shield at like 9 turns in, and then you get like very significantly diminishing returns. But if you have 3 cryptic cores across all 3 characters, you get like the exact same amount of shield every turn. You can end up getting like 2.5, 3.5-ish. I think it's 3.5 total. A little over 3.5 times more shield than you originally started with, so it does stack up quite well. And so if you're getting something like, if you somehow manage to stack like 2,000 shield per turn, that means that at the very end of those 9 turns, if you ignore, boss damage and like intermittent like slaps going on from like the enemies, you could go from 2,000 up to like maybe like 7,000 total. And 7,000 on Maribel, if you just ignore, if you ignore the weakness, you ignore crits, and you have E1 Maribel, then you're doing 10,500 damage with just that alone. And then obviously most bosses in this game, or the Nebula bosses, only have 30,000 HP total. So if you dupe Shelter Strike twice, then you can one-shot a boss with Maribel, and that will be really funny because Maribel is obviously a tank unit, but then if she's doing 10k 3 times, that's really good. And obviously with crit, with weakness attack, that 10,000 can very quickly go up to something like 25,000, because if you have 200% crit, you're going to go from 10,000 to 20,000, and then with weakness, that's 25% more damage, and 25% more of 20,000 is like 4k, so you're getting, no, it's 5k, so you're getting 25,000 after that. So very funny things that can happen with Maribel. The only issue is that you have to grind like very off meta things, and you have to somehow figure out how to get a lot of shield, because there's no like, Veronica is a character that has shield on draw, so you probably have to find the divine epiphany of this top right Veronica card that makes it 0 cost, so you can get shield from Veronica, which would then stack with off like your resolves and your other things, while still allowing you to, not the top right, the bottom left, my bad. You have to get the bottom left of repos, so you can get the mana efficiency from this card, as well as stacking more shield. And you just somehow get this with like 4 times copies, and then you have to figure out how to get the AP to do everything and all this. So it's an entire thing they have to do in order to get this Maribel built to work properly. But if you do get it to work, like we know it works because there's videos of Maribel doing like 10k with Shelter Strike already, but it's just like the matter of making it cap out is the main problem. And now we're going to meme concepts. So these are all characters that I personally can't really play that often, but I think there is a meme there. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll skip the meme concept and just go to the meme is meta. So we'll just pop this up. So the meme is meta is kind of the unfortunate boring aspect of this game where a lot of characters that are really funny builds are unfortunately doubling as their really powerful builds. So Haru is like a really great example. Haru doesn't really have much going on besides anchor shot and then anchor pointer. There's literally no other thing you can do with Haru that is funny because power charge has something that can repeat but only repeats once. Otherwise it's like buffing, like power charge buffs itself or buffs another card. Charge energy is just a buff, like lift anchor. You can make your anchor shot like plus 5 mana for fun, but like that's not really a great meme. That's just like a generic buff with a downside. So realistically, like Haru, again, the meme is meta, so you're just going like anchor shot, preferably with the combo or this middle one with the best stacking possible damage, and then just going for like retrieve, anchor pointer, or just like a generic anchor pointer to bounce it back. So the quote unquote meme is just you casting anchor shot like 6 times a turn because you play anchor shot and you use anchor pointer 4 times because you want 4 dupes of anchor pointer, and then that's it, right? And if you have on crit hit move it to hand, that's where you get the 6 number. If you only have if you don't have that, you have the combo or the other buff. That's only 5 times. And then you can get up to 9, or you can get up to 10 casts per turn with the crit hit with the retrieve anchor pointer, but that's only on the first turn. And unfortunately, if you're taking the crit retrieve anchor shot, you're doing a lot less damage than if you're doing the middle anchor shot or the top right anchor shot. So again, that's kind of like, it's a good example of what I mean by like, it's really funny to watch. Like, it's very satisfying and very interesting to see Haru like pop off anchor shot like 9 times in a row. But unfortunately, you're not doing anything that's like actually out of the norm. It's just very vanilla, if that makes sense. Same thing with Yuki. Yuki's memes are essentially like abusing morale on Flash Slash because obviously Flash Slash with inspiration reduces itself by 1 cost. So the base epiphany and the morale, the best morale you can get from that is the base epiphany. So you have to get this 2 mana like decreased by 1. Like you can never get +3 morale with this 0 cost inspiration on Flash Slash, right? You can only get this one. And then like if you do that, like stacking morale is funny, but functionally gameplay wise, all Yuki is doing is drawing her own cards through Prepare Subdue and Trickery Strike, and then like pumping out AoEs through Flash Slash and Iceberg Cleave, right? So it's funny to see the morale count like go up very artificially high with the Flash Slash Epiphany, but again, in the end, it's like very like, oh, I'm just playing Yuki and I'm seeing a funny effect, but like functional, like physically and like response wise, it is the exact same thing you're doing on any other Yuki build. And you could go like perma Iceberg Cleave, but that's another stance of like, oh, you're not really doing anything interesting, you're just playing infinite Iceberg Cleaves. And there is like the small point of like you could play the single target Yuki build, but I don't think the single target Yuki build is actually that satisfying to play. So like whatever, like it's 2 mana, do like 500% damage. That's not really that interesting, to be fair. So yeah, unfortunately Yuki doesn't have too much sauce going on, but that's what I mean. Like there is a meme, but the meme is just how you're playing Yuki to begin with. Rin, again, very similar idea. Like the meme, like the funniest way of playing her is to stack up 4 of these move dark get 4 of these copies of like the move cards and then just pump them over and over again. There is potentially like one funny thing you do with a Dark Mist Secret Art where you reduce all of your cards by 1, but the main issue is that Rin's cards don't really function in a way that like really rewards you for stacking 4 of these and then throwing them out, because not only do the forbidden cards not really help this idea, there's not really anything too interesting to do with like a reduce 1 by 1 turn. Because again, like none of the forbidden cards really want this to stack up. She's a striker, so she sadly can't even interact with those neutral cards that like that one neutral card that can go to +6 hits overall after you've attuned it 5 times. Like Rin can't take that, so she can't interact with that. So sadly, like the other meme potential cards aren't even good because and it not only they're not good, they're not that funny because you're just playing the exact same cards you're playing regardless with Rin. So she's another one of those like yeah, it's fine, it's good, but it's not great. And like again, like with this move card, like the only other meme potential you have is this bottom left Dark Mist Inner Art. But the main thing is that like creating a Dark Mist Secret or Dark Mist Annihilation and moving it back to your hand is literally the exact same thing. So it's again like the meme is meta. There's nothing else you can do with Rin that is truly interesting besides spamming out Annihilation and Black Dance over and over and over again. So yeah, a bit sauceless. Khalipe, very same idea. Like the only thing that you really have for her is like duping Vulture Ejection, and then the meme is just based like very much like Yuki. There is funny potential because the hilarity of the Khalipe build depends on what epiphany you take. But unfortunately, again, it's very similar. Like you can go like Vuln, which is funny. You can go Resolve, which lets you buff all the future attack or defense shields you get. You can go like plus AP, plus draw, and like draw 4 cards for free by using Vulture Ejection and using Celestial off of it, right? Like those things can be very interesting to do, but unfortunately, in the end, all you're doing is ejecting Vulture, and then like you're getting the effect and associated funny things. So that's why, again, the meme is the meta, because almost every Khalipe deck needs to just dupe Vulture Ejection as much as possible, and the way you play Vulture Ejection is going to be the exact same way across all of those. So very vanilla thing, but like again, the effect could be funny. It's just that like you aren't, much like you aren't getting a different feel from it. It's all the same, and you can go for damage again. Also, again, you can like make a Khalipe DPS build, and you can like, I saw this one YouTube video where like this guy did a fully AFK Khalipe build because he was able to draw all of his Vulture Ejections, and then they used Absolute Protection, and then the AI was smart enough to like understand how to draw everything and then use Celestial, and then its turn do it again, and they were able to beat Judas with that full auto gameplay. But once again, it's the exact same thing. Like you're just playing Vulture Ejection, or you're just drawing your Vulture Ejections, cheating them out, and then ending turn and going again and over again. It is funny, but it's sadly all the same gameplay for Khalipe. Like even if you want to do DPS Khalipe, support Khalipe, draw Khalipe, AP Khalipe, like they're all the exact same thing, unfortunately. Next character is going to be Hugo. Hugo doesn't really have much going on. Unfortunately, while his kit is very powerful, again, same tune. I'm trying to explain it for both the video length and just for, if people are unaware, then hopefully this will let you be aware, where it's just like, all his best card or his most notable card is Hunting Instinct, and all Hunting Instinct does is give you Commence the Hunt, and then Commence the Hunt, all that does is allow Hugo to follow up attack off of an ally's attack card, right? So the funniest thing you can do is his bottom left Hunting Instinct, where you get even more attacks, because when you trigger Commence the Hunt, your ally can also attack with them. So the funniest thing you can do is just get like multiple copies of this bottom, it's only one copy in the end, because I figure maybe this bot, I should have asked like a content creator or like a friend about this, but you can maybe go for 2 of these Hunting Instincts, assuming of course that it stacks up the 50% chance, so they have a 100% chance to guarantee the coordinate attack. Obviously, duping this will give you more Commence the Hunts for the skill or upgrades, which is the main point of using it, but otherwise, like the other part, which is the coordinate attack, you would want to get a higher percent chance, so you just want 2. But there's nothing really else that's funny about Hugo, because everything else he does is just more damage or support for Commence the Hunt or draw, right? So again, it is, I think Hugo is like one of those characters that, again, much like Khalipe, there's a lot of variations on the exact same thing that's happening, and it will be very fun seeing how all those like affect the team you want to play, affect the gameplay itself. But visually speaking and receptively, like it is just like I play a skill, I play an attack after playing Hunting Instincts, I watch Hugo go Lightning Dingo, and then Lightning Dingo, and then Lightning Dingo, and then like maybe you have like other sound effects from other characters like going hup 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 with the coordinate attacks, right? Like it is very fun. I think it definitely, like I honestly want to select Hugo with my 300 pulse selector just for the sake of having that funny gameplay in my life. But in the end, it is how he's played anyways, so that's why it's very sauceless, honestly. Renoa is kind of the character who probably belongs in Vouched Meme, but unfortunately all of her ideas, like, unlike all the other characters, the way you interact with Renoa's memes are actually gameplay-wise very different. Because you're either using Echo of Sorrow to create Dirge Bullets, and therefore you're not discarding, and if you're not discarding to create room for these Dirge Bullets, you do have to interact with your hand in an interesting way to make room, or you're using Flower instead, which does discard, but requires you to have cards you want to discard. So while in the end result for Renoa is always going to be you do a funny like bullet time on your opponent, right? She will always end up shooting like 12 plus times is the end result for all of these Renoa memes. And obviously I have a video where I managed to get 34 bullets, which are all like tickle bullets to be fair, because of how the boss worked. Unfortunately, I couldn't really stack up that much on Great Rift because of the debuff mechanics. Renoa's extra attacks don't count towards hit count, so I kept getting my hand replaced by 2 mana cards, and that would basically lose me the meme potential. And unfortunately, because Renoa discarding bullets and like drawing bullets and all that does damage, even the Nebula Distortion bosses just die after a while, so I couldn't get to like the funny 100 bullet clip that I want to get. which would be like the ultimate epitome of the meme that I'm going for Renoa. But in the end, like it's just like stacking on top of that. Like everything that Renoa does is just another level of how many bullets are you pulling out with Nia's ultimate, right? And so again, whether that's through Echo of Sorrow dupes, whether you're going for the upgrade to get a lot of free dirge bullets, whether you're going for like a full deck cycle and going for create dirge bullets, whether that's replaced by flower, I don't even know the full name actually, whether that's replaced by flower for the discard up to 3 or like discard all combat, like all of these, like these, you're just looking for these two cards and duping them, maybe even a mixture of both of them just to make your life easier for deck building. Like you're just trying to go for a lot of flowers, and then ideally the highest peak you can get with this is going to be either this version of Ballad of Pitch Black, which is the one that makes your bullets do more damage, or more funnily for me personally would be going for this bottom right ballad, where if you're going, like if they eventually like release a score attack boss where like you're allowed to just like it's like training dummy, right? You're just trying to show off your maximum potential damage, which I really hope they do, by the way, because that would solve my Renoa problems. Then eventually, like you can get the 100 bullet meme that I'm talking about, use Nia ult, and then use this ballad at the very end to exhaust all 100 of those bullets and deal 5,000 damage with this ballad, with the effect on ballad. So obviously that's like kind of like that's a dream that will never happen in this current stage of the game, but that's just what I mean by like that's why I said Renoa out of all characters belongs in a bit higher of a tier for the memes. But unfortunately, like the way you play Renoa, like everyone's gonna be playing Renoa like that. You're always gonna be generating dirge bullets. You're always gonna be empowering the dirge bullets or affecting the dirge bullets in a certain way, and it gets funny. Like again, much like Hugo, much like Khalipe, much like all these other memes meta characters, getting an excess of the thing you're doing is always gonna be really funny. But unfortunately, you're doing an excess of something that they're already supposed to do, so that therefore it is meta. Moving on, Luke. Luke is a character, like I think we've all seen the videos. If you haven't seen the videos, the meme for Luke is that you're gonna stack up. It has to be divine, unfortunately, or else you don't have that much AP for it, and you don't get interactions with Cassius. But the idea is that you get a zero cost version of the retrieve spell Rapid Fire, and then therefore each copy of Rapid Fire, you have 4 copies total, hopefully. Each copy represents 5 attacks because you get, no, 6 attacks because you cast this twice due to retrieve, and then there's 2 hits that you both crit on, which is another 2 bullets, so it's 6 attacks total. And then with that, you would, I guess I did my math wrong in the other Tierlist video when I think about it. But then on Dance of the Demon, you can see on the top right, you get a Epiphany variation where it's each attack card used this turn, 1 extra hit. So with 4 copies of this Rapid Fire, you have 24 attacks total. And then obviously, if you're running Cassius, who's the most natural accompaniment to this, you will have 000 as your quest. 24 attacks will be 8 000 procs, so that's 32 attacks at minimum if you have the perfect build. And obviously, you can have different characters, like you can have Nia, Veronica, or Mika for a draw and AP engine to accompany them, and they'll probably have their own attacks as well. And then you can get to very ridiculous numbers on Dance of the Demon with that. And unfortunately, as far as I can tell, that is kind of the meta for Luke, to get this specific retrieve Rapid Fire with the -1 discount and then just pump damage. And while there are other Dance of the Demons, like all of them functionally work off of you having a million bullets played, because you can see here it's like for each bullet used, for each bullet used, for each bullet used, for each bullet, like they're all for each bullet used, get 1 hit and then some other thing, whereas the top right is all attacks, which is obviously why Cassius scales it so much more efficiently. And then everything else he has, unfortunately, I actually don't know how these work, like next bullet card used plus 170%. I do want to see if this is infinitely stacking, like or like properly stacking, quote unquote, like Chizuru, or if it's like a charge-based stacking, like what Rei has and what the other Chizuru Tsukuyomi does. If this is like a true like saved damage amount, then it could be funny to like just charge up 1 bullet to a giga high amount and then just punt somebody with like a plus 15,000 damage amount bullet, right? Like that could be funny. And if that's the case, then I guess Luke's memes are underexplored. But in the end, it's like you can see that everything he does, you're supposed to just generate handgun bullets and it's like shoot them out. And so even this like meme is kind of going against what Luke is meant to be, but I guess that's what a off-meta meme build is supposed to be, right? So maybe Luke could have a funny alternate build, but I haven't seen it, so we'll leave him here for now at this point. Tressa probably doesn't need too much introduction, but if you don't know what Tressa is doing, if you're like just getting into the game and you clicked on this video to learn a bit more, Tressa's meme is that you can get Shadow Reload and dupe this 3 or 4 times, and you can read the text: when healed by a skill card, create 1 Shadow Dagger. This generates every heal card. So her Touch of Darkness, for example, or if you're playing Mika, these water barriers, this Source of Water, Blessing of Waves, this specific Tactical Analysis Epiphany. Whirlpool doesn't work as an attack card, but you can play all these heal cards, and then with every one of the heal cards, you generate as many Shadow Daggers as you played Shadow Reloads. And there is one funny tech with Orlea, where if you retain Sturdy does indeed proc the Shadow Reload text. So you will get the Shadow Daggers from Sturdy. And therefore, if you have Growth Acceleration, like the 0-cost one, you can actually get, assuming you have 3 Shadow Reloads active, you can get +6 Shadow Daggers. If you have 4 Shadow Reloads active, you can get +8 Shadow Daggers, right? So the meme for Tressa is that because of the way Shadow Reload upgrade works with a lot of healer kits, you just get way more Shadow Daggers than you're supposed to. Like, you can see every other Shadow Dagger epiphany or skill in epiphany, and you can tell that, like for example, like this X is based on your action points. Like, if you were to go up to 10 action points and then cast this once, you get 10 Shadow Daggers, right? And that pales in comparison to using this with 4 heal cards. And 4 heal cards might not even cost you 4 AP because it might be Source of Waters, and that just massively gaps like getting this. Obviously, if you have like 4 copies of this, you could maybe justify, like, you can maybe pretend that you're playing a few more Shadow Daggers, but then the idea is that, like, this is X, right? So if you played 1, you can't even play the extra 3, so it's capped out. Whereas this one is essentially as many heal cards as you have in your deck. You can keep going. And then obviously, if you are playing the game consistently, you know what Great Rift is. You know that Cassius, Mika, Tressa is like the insane boogeyman right now. And with these Shadow Daggers costing 0 mana, obviously, again, just like Luke, playing 3 Shadow Daggers, which you can get very easily with 3 Shadow Reloads at bare minimum, would give you 000. And then 000, when you proc the quest, one of Cassius's Dice Trick Epiphanies is when you complete a quest, you get a quest card, so you can duplicate this. And then the entire gameplay loop of Cassius, Mika, Tressa is that you play a heal, play Shadow Reload, generate 3 or 4 Shadow Daggers, play those 3 Shadow Daggers, generate 3 or 4 quest cards, and then rinse, repeat, continue going, and then you just do disturbing amounts of everything with that comp, which is why it's like, again, the meme is meta. And there are, again, Tressa can do other things, like much like Renoa, she can generate Shadow Daggers through separate ways. Like, there are other ways to do Shadow Dagger. You can do Unsheathed Dagger, which will give you Shadow Daggers, but obviously that's a much lesser abuse case than Shadow Reload with Unsheathed Dagger. But in the end, all you're doing is pumping out Shadow Daggers, and then your other cards just interact with that Agony in certain ways. Like, this one gives you more Agony damage, this one lets you do more damage based on Agony, but in the end, all you're doing is pumping out Shadow Daggers, which is all Tressa can do, really, and therefore what she does is always going to be meta, no matter how funny it looks. And then Beryl, again, Beryl is the exact same thing as Tressa, where you are stacking one copy or one version of a upgrade, and then you're doing that over and over again, and you're casting like 3 or 4 copies, which is way more than I think the developers initially intended. And so with only 3 opening founds, as you might be able to tell with Beryl's deck, there are, let me see actually quickly if these okay, yeah, there are no retain. You can't make the basics retain, right? Sorry, I'm being checked for a second. Yeah, you can't make the basics retain, so you should be deleting these. But with Heavy Weapon Specialist, you just forcibly generate your retain card. So obviously you start with 1 charge shot, and then with Heavy Weapon Specialist, you generate another retain card. And then, so eventually at some point, you would end up having like 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 retain cards. And then if you have 3 opening founds, obviously you multiply that number by 3. If you have 4, multiply by 4. And then at some point, let's say that you just don't care about the quality of your run, you just want to see Beryl go crazy. You have 10 retain cards, and you have 4 copies of opening found. That's 40 shots from Beryl every turn. And once again, with this mythical, not even mentioned, not even teased, score attack training dummy that I really want them to put in the game, with that, you can just like end turn, just watch Beryl just go crazy 40 attacks at a time, right? And that'd be really funny. But unfortunately, that is really the only way she can play the game. Although, unlike most other characters that have very funny but very meta meme builds, she does have some other options. Like, you can go for this retain +1 hit for 1 turn. I have heard that this actually stacks. So if you have characters like Orlea, obviously Orlea's growth acceleration, this is not, once you upgrade it, like, you have this middle one. I guess looking at it, like, some of these are looks like many of these are forced to be only Orlea. But if you have the 0-cost version, you can push this onto Beryl. And if you have let's say you have 4 copies of the zero cost growth acceleration, and then you're playing this opening found with retain +2 hits, that means technically you can get this up to like +9 or +8 hits alone on Beryl. And then if you're playing this specific Guilty Pleasure and you have 4 of these, you can do +12 hits, or so it'll be 13 hits total, right? So there is that funny option that you can do with Beryl where you just giga push this opening found into +13 hits per turn, which unfortunately, once again, is functionally very similar to this opening found upgrade, and this one would do more over time anyways. But if you want to be different, if you want to be funny, then that does exist as an avenue for opening found. And you can even push that into a lot of these other cards where, like, again, you can do like pseudo sturdy shenanigans with Orlea but on Beryl, where you, instead going for like the hit count for 1 turn, you just giga stack a charge shot and then pump your retain cards into this charge shot and get to like 15,000 damage and shoot it really hard, right? So there are things you can do with Beryl, but unfortunately, the funniest and most like engaging meme is the one that makes her the most meta at this point. And so moving on downwards into meme concepts, the first meme concept is going to be Magna. Magna, unfortunately, if you listen to the Maribell section, I will repeat in case you want to jump to Magna. If you listen to the Maribell section, feel free to skip ahead, but this is for the people that are just using timestamps. Magna's meme is unfortunately identical to Maribel's meme, where you're just going to be stacking up shield and then punching everyone with the massive shield you have retained, with the Ice Wall Epiphany, damage to all enemies equal to shield owned. I think based on the wording, this should be able to crit, this should target weakness, and this should scale with like other, like this should also scale with vulnerable. So obviously Maribel's Epiphany is fixed damage, and her Epiphany gives it 50% more damage at the end, but with vulnerable access, like that, like fixed damage can't proc vulnerable. But this Ice Wall isn't fixed damage. So unless the text is wrong and this actually is fixed damage, then ideally this should be able to proc with vulnerable. So while you're spending 1 more mana for the AoE effect, you should functionally get the same value as Maribell. Now, unlike Maribell, Magna has much cheaper basic shields, so you can actually keep these and have an excuse to keep these. And she actually also has a lot of extra shield a lot of extra fixed shield generation. So you can see here that Magna has crystallization. Now, the only problem with crystallization is that it's honestly quite weak, so I wouldn't even recommend Epiphany or duping this. You could technically dupe this, like you could go like 4 ice fragments on this top middle one and go for 16 crystallization per turn. 16 crystallization would give you 320% fixed shield every turn. The only problem with that is that's like 300%, 320% fixed shield per turn is not actually that incredible, because fixed shield dodges the procs from stuff like Seaweed Armor, it dodges procs from stuff like Resolve. So to me, instead of going for Giga Crystallization and Ice Fragment, you'd much rather go for like Frost Charge with this middle one, where it gives you for each enemy plus 50% shield gain. Now, this shield gain seems like it's limited to the card itself, but the main thing is that this shield ends up being a 1 mana plus 225% shield, and obviously that is just a lot. That's 1 mana, gain way more shield than these basics are giving. And if you and there's, again, I don't own Magna, so I really want to see how this works, but like if you manage to, depending on how the shield gain works, I'm assuming again it's just like a flat buff, but something on Orlea, for example, like if you look at the Sturdy Sensor upgrade, where it gives you plus 150% shield to the next 30 used, this actually double dips very specifically on Resolve, which is very weird. But I think this might be unique in that sense. But I'm just saying all this in case that this shield gain also double dips on Resolve. It might be okay. But otherwise, like Magna, my main issue with Maribell is that she didn't generate her own shield in massive enough quantities to really get the ball rolling, but Magna can do that, and that's a pretty big deal, because not only are her cards much nicer because she has 2 upgrades, which will obviously delete themselves, she also has Glacial Iron Fist, which once again is not really that great because it's a fixed damage shield. So you don't get benefits off of Resolve or shield gain, but it is technically like a bit more damage than what Maribel gets. And so you can stack the shield much more easily on Magna and then have more draw supports like Veronica, and actually have a proper heal like Mika. And then obviously, just like Maribel, you can run the unique accessory from Foretold Ruin that gives you retain, and that way you just get more and more and more going on. Now, Magna does have a retain, does have a particular spell that lets you retain your shield, which I think should be on. I thought I saw it at one point. Oh, it's right here. This one Glacial Iron Fist allows you to retain your entire shield, but the issue is that this is exhaust. So since it exhausts, you can use that as another deck thinner, but unfortunately, you can never, like, you can't keep up your shield permanently with this because it goes away. And so, yeah. Obviously, once again, you can just end up duping the Frost Charge to get the max amount of shield, and that can be okay, especially if you get the Divine Epiphany that lets you draw off of this Frost Charge as well, which will help you cycle, and then you just run Nia for AP or Mika for AP as well as healing, and that will help you charge up a lot more shield than, again, Maribell can. Unfortunately, once again, no videos on this. Like, Maribell has a video, but Magna does not have a video, so I don't have proof this works, so it's just a concept, but conceptually, it should work. Now, Owen, Owen's memes, I just put all the characters I don't know about in the meme tier, and I'm trying to, like, spin up a meme for fun, but with Owen, the main thing, so I'm trying to go ahead and assume that, like, these hit additions are based on charge, and not truly, sadly, not truly, like, a stacking effect, so you can't get a Chizuru thing going on, where, like, Owen does, like, 15,000 hits of 0 damage, right, which would be what this bottom right could have potentially been, but unfortunately it's not. So instead, the Owen meme that I'd probably end up going for will be something with wind riding and his, like, ego skills, because if you see here, it says whenever Owen's wind charges move to hand, deal 80% to all enemies. Now that's a very, very low amount of damage, right? And wind riding, or wind charge rather, is like this card, but with wind riding, you can move, I guess now I'm looking at it, it's not going to work properly because you can only move it back to hand. If you were to use wind charge, that means it goes into the graveyard, or it goes in the use pile, and this one specifically says move it back. So what you have to do instead is you have to play Nia and Cassius and just force discard wind charge and then bounce it back through those redraw means. And that could be funny, like just seeing Owen like go crazy for free. It's not gonna be very strong, but it is a meme, and seeing Owen actually being featured as a main carry through that could be fun. Like, again, I'm not gonna even pretend that's any good. You just go to the retrieve spell to get the first one off, and then you'd end up going like wind riding to move it. Like, obviously some Adagio Epiphanies don't particularly work well with drawing things back, so you can use wind riding. If you're using something like Cassius, you can use Cassius Shuffle into wind riding, and Cassius Shuffle into wind riding to get that going on, which could be okay. And then nothing else in his kit. What's this? Why is this in the wrong direction? But nothing else in his kit really does, like, nothing in the kit really helps him out much. You can go Fortitude to help buff up the wind charge memes, but unfortunately, like, wind slash doesn't really help you out with that at all. But again, could be funny. Like, again, Owen carry is something that no one ever sees, and I'm not even gonna pretend that this is a good way to use Owen with the wind charge, because 80% AOE is very pitiful. But it's something like seeing Owen like clear a floor basin could be a video title if you really want to make that video. Selena, so Selena is more of a question. Again, this is conceptual, so I don't know if these will work, but Selena's meme is more of a question of how these upgrades will stack. So obviously you can duplicate the cards before they get an epiphany. So the meme I want to test is if I were to dupe epiphanies, right, or dupe very specifically, I would dupe drone bombing. Drone bombing has an upgrade and a skill, and these both give you coordinated attacks, right? So my question is, if I were to dupe this separately, like before I get an epiphany, like floor 1 boss, I dupe drone bombing, and then I get the epiphany for the skill where when you perform attack weakness, you get a coordinated attack, and then I separately get the upgrade where when I play passion card, I get a coordinated attack. If I play both of these, how does this interact? I haven't leveled up Selena, I haven't put in the time yet. But again, this is a meme concept, because the idea that I want to see is if I play, like, let's just assume we're playing basic attack Mei Lin. We're not going for the Giga Rising Dragon Spire, right? We're just going for 4 dupes on Mei Lin with the, like, let's not even say, actually, no, yeah, it'd still be the move, I think, sadly, because the creates end up not really generating more strike cards. So it'd still be the move epiphany. I just get 4 of these, right? 4 of these would equal up to around 8 attacks total from Mei Lin. And then the hope is that with the high power scope, when another combatant attack card is used, obviously this buff, I would get this epiphany, and then I dupe drone bombing once, and then I get the skill and the other buff, and then every time Mei Lin attacks, hopefully Selena attacks 3 times. And then that'd be really fun, just watching Mei Lin attack 8 times with her unity of attack and defense, and seeing Selena go crazy herself with like 3 attacks to follow up with that. Unfortunately, target spotted doesn't really benefit from that, but actually no, actually yeah, what could happen I guess it says when using an attack card. I'm assuming this means Selena herself, but also like once again, if these do stack, like if I am able to dupe high power scope before, like if I dupe, like if I get like let's say I dupe drone bombing and then I get an event that lets me dupe high power scope and then like I get very late epiphany somehow on both of these, like divine epiphany into a generic combat epiphany. Probably much more difficult to farm, by the way, than normal build. But if I can get this high power scope, this high power scope, and then these two drone bombings, could I potentially get 4 Selena attacks a turn off of 1 Mei Lin attack? I really want to see that. And again, this is totally conceptual. That's why it's in the concept tier. But I think that would be very enjoyable to watch Selena just like go pew 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 like a sniper with a machine gun. Like, okay, that seems pretty fun. The other Selena meme that she has is duping drone bombing 0 cost 4 times and then playing her with something like Mei Lin Veronica. Obviously Mei Lin with the Unity, this is multiple attacks. Like ideally you'd have this with either +1 draw or +1 AP, and you'd have 8 attacks to pump Selena's drone bombing at least 8 times. So this would be +30 or like +8. So this would be like 460, and then Selena herself, like you have to keep all the basic attacks. So like you have 2 engagement fires on Selena. Veronica would end up having both of her rapid fires, so another +4 on drone bombing. So it'd be +4, so +12 overall. So you would have like 600% drone bombing, and then maybe you get like maybe you have target spotted. Maybe you have I think tactical maneuver has an attack. Yeah, you have tactical maneuver with an attack, another +2, so 14. So the cap for drone bombing is fairly low, unfortunately, due to there being very limited passion attack cards. But you can then add neutrals for this. Like there are neutral cards that exist they can put on both Selena and Veronica. These being stuff like quick shelling, for example, just to cycle cheaply. You have precision aim to allow yourself to bounce stuff like eternal hunger to draw and play the extra 1 minute basic attacks you have. So you can inflate this a little bit more. Obviously, the extent of which you can drag it up by is a bit hard to say, but in the end, like you could get drone bombing to maybe like 1000% damage, and then you could double that with Mei Lin with her passion card, and then or you just have 4 copies. You just play all 4 copies, and you get like maybe like 4500 damage overall with drone bombing, which is again a very low bar for this game, but could be very funny to watch because you are doing something different with Selena, and she is the carry instead of generically Mei Lin like always. But Amir, the Amir meme for me would be crystallization spam or metallization spam. So Amir obviously is a character that's a tank. Unlike Magna, unlike Maribell, she has no true shield damage interactions, but instead she has metallized, which is when you gain shield, you deal damage, and then every time you gain that shield, it ticks down once. So you see here that this metallization is like by the it's like by card. Like you have to like get it manually through a card. There is no epiphany, unfortunately, with metallization, where when you gain shield, you gain metallization, which would... Oh no, there is one. When one turn using metallization skill, or when using skill cards, 1 metallization. So it's only 2 times max. Funnily enough, somehow Amir is the only character that gets a hit count cap for their funny infinite stacking. This should probably be on Tressa and Joker's, or on Cassius's dice trick, but you know, it is what it is. But so I guess you could go like for 4 copies of this, and then that would give you no, this would be 4 metallization overall. Whereas if you dupe if you were to dupe this celestial metallization, you could get 12 overall instead. All that to say that like there is a world with Amir where you just drop, like you don't bother playing this like decreased metallization. Instead, you'd go for this metallization damage effect, or oh no, this my bad, this right side. For 1 turn, each strike from metallization effect hits 1 additional time. You would take this. Another question of whether or not this stacks. Because if this stacks, you would dupe this 4 times. Preferably get a divine epiphany on this, so it's 1 mana, so you can actually play it all. But you'd basically play this, get +4 hits total on metallization, and then just try and like stack up metallization as much as you can. And then on the pop-off turn, you would just like, you'd maybe have like, let's say that the goal was to have 20 metallization stacks, right? Then you'd somehow play 20 metallization, or play 20 shields. God knows how that would work, but ideally you somehow get that, plus you somehow get to that point. Play 20 metallization, or play 20 shield cards, have 20 metallization, have play full metal a hurricane all 4 times, and then just watch Amir attack 100 times, right? That would be very funny, and that is the goal for this meme Amir build. Again, not sure if it works. Hopefully it does, and you can obviously stack metallization through many ways. Like this is bottom left, metal pierce to stack metallization. You can continue casting the 4 metallize here, or even just the upgrade hovering metal here. Well, I probably just this top middle one for the maximalization per turn. Metal extraction, you can stack the you can probably end up stacking the skill card because this is technically the highest efficiency metallization skill card here. So you get 4 over time. So if you're getting +4 here, +2 here, +4 here, you're getting 10 metallize a turn. So while you're stacking up full metal hurricane, or like while you're, let's say that you have that one forbidden card that subtracts 1 mana. I forget what, I think it's like guidance of utility. Let me check that really quickly. So while, like, let's say that you're not getting perfect runs and you have to like set up a little bit beforehand, you can go guidance of utility, or no, not utility, my bad. So it is gesture of freedom. If you can like fish around for gesture of freedom in order to make it perfectly slam into the full metal hurricane. Although now that I think about it, it wouldn't really work out because the full metal hurricane, you have to get four copies, so you only get discount once. So I guess you'd have to, like, again, it's like messing around somehow. Maybe you play Nia to use Nia's like mana cheating skills to play full metal hurricane for cheaper or for free. But the end goal again is to have like a lot of metallization, and then pop this as many times as you can, and then get as many shield procs as you can to get all the metallization out. And then I guess I wish that I wish that Amir had a way to like burn 50 metallization all at once in order to do 50 hits naturally, but unfortunately it seems like that's not the case. But you can still maybe get like 20 attacks off metallization with like spamming full metal hurricane over and over and over again, and it would be pretty fun to watch. So that's the Amir meme. Kayron, I don't really know my Kayron that well, but I'm assuming, I know that he has like some infinite stacking mechanic, so the meme, which has been done a few times, but is not meta, is to just make Kayron stack Giga, and I think that is probably this version of Black Hole because it stacks up permanently. So you just like spend like 5,000 turns stacking up, like casting futilities over and over again, getting this absurdly high number. Again, I'm pretty sure that's not the genuine meta build for Kayron, which is why he's in concept. I guess Vouch meme is more accurate for this. But yeah, that is what you do for Kayron. There are probably other ideas for Kayron, but I don't own him, and I don't really see people cooking with him that much, sadly. So that it would be what my just initial thought with him would be. And maybe eventually, I guess it's also this bottom right, I guess a futility. We can like stack this up to some obscene number as well after generating a billion futilities. And this is probably easier to do because you just copy this 4 times, plus 120% every turn. Oh no, it's way more because it'd be plus 60% every turn 4 times. So it'd be 240% futility stacked up every turn. And then somehow you'd have to burn the futilities off, which I don't even know how you do. But yeah, that I'll say that like that is something that people have done. But it would be fun to see Kayron go giga high numbers. Ray's meme is not something I've seen, and unfortunately is a bit vanilla, but the meme for Ray would just be using Dark Condensation all onto her own Ecstasy of Violence, because that way you can get plus 100% on that. No, what you do, it'd be very similar to what I mentioned earlier. Like you go into the boss, you can try and dupe Dark Condensation once at the base, and then you get 1 copy of this version of Dark Condensation, which is plus 100% damage amount until used, and then you'd somehow manage to, or no, it's plus 150%. This one for 1 turn, and you somehow get to triple Dark Condensation upgrade so that you can buff 1 card by 300% for 1 turn. Unfortunately, these do not do true stacks. These are like charge stacks, so you're getting like plus 1 turn, or plus 1 usage, instead of getting like 300%, 450%, right? So that's why you have to split the upgrades, sadly, assuming that obviously this upgrade stacked properly. And then with plus 300% on Ecstasy of Violence, which is the forbidden card that does 150% times 4. You might be able to get Ray to like pump some decent numbers. Obviously, it's not that crazy, but Ray is not a character that's usually meant to be your main DPS. So the idea would just to be making Ray a main DPS for fun, because obviously, Ecstasy of Violence drops down to a 0 cost, so you can get Resonating Darkness to buff it. You can get Predator's Blade to buff it. You can get Strike of Darkness to get morale, hopefully, and get a bit stronger. And then yeah, you can maybe get to like a 600%, if not more, Ecstasy of Violence, and just watch Ray like pop off for like 1 hit, and then do it all over again the next turn until you clear the stage. The next character, Lucas, just like I mentioned in the last video, like Lucas is not a character I've really looked at that much. I did glance at him, and unfortunately, he doesn't have many things that are interesting. Lucas is probably like the least unloved character by Smilegate, unfortunately, and hopefully they find something for him. But basically, the main issue with Lucas is that like he has launcher bullets, much like his twin brother Luke. But launcher bullets cost mana. I don't know why it gives like these are all Luke cards, by the way. These are not Lucas's bullets. These are Luke cards. So this site is bugged. But every one of Luke's bullets are just straight up 1 mana, and there's no way to discount them besides his initial not this potential, but his dupes. Like if you see here, if you have E6 Luke, the first launcher bullet you cost is reduced by 1, which is really irrelevant because the goal for Lucas to me would be spamming out infinite amount of bullets. But there's like not really anything that benefits Lucas for spamming bullets, right? If you want to generate attacks for Selena to pop off with, you play Mei Lin. If you want to play bullets, you play Luke. If you want to do something fun with like exhaust generation, you'd probably play like Orlea instead. Lucas basically has nothing, but I put him up here just in case there's a concept people will figure out for him in the meantime. Now, these three characters, I think Cassius probably has like a meme build with his dice trick because he does have a stacking dice trick with completed quests, which can be pretty funny in the long run, but it's just like the same vibe as what's going on with Orlea and that Beryl idea and other things, except it might be more interesting. But unfortunately, with dice trick, like again, you probably would end up accidentally killing your opponent with a dice trick, but you could probably dupe this 4 times and just pop off. But otherwise, he has a support. If you've played Mika, Mika doesn't really have a meme build, unfortunately. She's just a very honest, basic like plus AP/healer character. Unfortunately, there's no real reason to dupe Whirlpool. You can go for this like 4 mana cost Whirlpool and dupe it 4 times and just have like 1200 damage overall with Mika AoE, but you're not really getting much sauce. It's just generic AoE, so you might as well just play Kayron or Yuki or any other AoE character. But otherwise, yeah, she is your support. You're going to be looking for like this 1 wave withdraw or this 1 mana gain 2 AP withdraw because obviously these are this is either +1 AP per card, or if you manage to take damage and then heal, it'd be +2 AP, which is a lot of AP, and obviously that's very helpful. Obviously, there's also the bottom right version if you want to go for a 1-time Giga Dump in AP, which also works, but otherwise, Mika is just there for support. Same thing with Cassius. Cassius is a bit better for this meme support because with Full House, Full House allows you to play like these very cheap cards that you'll inevitably have on other characters and draw like 5 extra cards per turn. And then if you manage to get the dice trick upgrade, that gives you an extra quest card. This gives you potentially more draw and even more morale through cards like Straight to give you, or yeah, more morale through cards like Straight, which would end up letting you get even more value from your Giga Pump from whatever you're playing at the end. Cassius, unfortunately, himself does not have very funny stacking things. He's just a very strong support to allow you to pull off your meme and pull off your stacking turn over turn over turn. And then Nia is going to be the exact same thing, except Nia is much more dependent on you having the card Eternal Hunger somewhere in your deck. Obviously, you don't ideally, obviously, you want Eternal Hunger on Nia herself, but just keep in mind that if you're already planning on using Nia with a certain character, you can take Eternal Hunger on that character instead, and therefore you don't have to like grind hours and hours and hours for the perfect Eternal Hunger Forbidden card with the correct Adagios on Nia. You can just you can scuff up something with just a Portrait of Fury or even no ego skill, and just have your main carry hold the Eternal Hunger so that your Nia can pop off with it. And then obviously with that, you would need any of these 3 top Adagios, because the base Adagio, obviously you bounce the Eternal Hunger back. This draw 2 Adagio keeps the bouncing back to the top of the draw pile, and this rightmost Adagio, while itself doesn't bounce the card back to the top, it generates the original non-Epiphany Adagio, which allows you to do that. So this giving you a lot of extra bounces with Eternal Hunger. If you have 4 copies of these, that is +4 AP and +4 draw, which is obviously very, very powerful. And then if you are somehow able to even go even further, like you're playing Cassius, you can get Cassius as discard as well, and then Nia can draw with Curiosity, for example, to pull out the Eternal Hunger after you shuffle your deck. You can get Mute Accent with you can get Mute Accent to discard Eternal Hunger forcibly if you're somehow out of cards, and then draw with Cassius Full House, or you can use G Chord to play to activate Cassius card to draw more to shuffle in order to pull out Eternal Hunger again after discarding, right? So the Cassius Nia cycling engine is very, very powerful because obviously Cassius and Nia both have very cheap cards that will let you play full house over and over again. And then ideally your carry would also have like a card here or there to play to continue generating cards. And then that way you can pull into the support cards to ramp. You can heal a little bit. You ideally would want like E2 Cassius because E2 Cassius has healing with it. But otherwise, like with Nia, there is a Soul Rip Epiphany version where when you discard a card, you do heal. So even though your outright raw healing isn't as powerful as having Mika on the team, you can still sustain yourself with this Soul Rip if you need that and you like plan ahead for that. Or worst comes to worst, there is Futility of Guidance, which is the upgrade card that lets you heal. You can always run this worst comes to worst in order to sustain yourself in those harder fights. So yeah, those are the supports. And then these two characters, Veronica does belong in OP support, and Mei Lin does belong in the meme is the meta. But just very briefly to talk about Mei Lin. Mei Lin, obviously, like her real build is very figured out. Mei Lin has a Rising Dragon Spire Epiphany where you just pump like 15, like you pump like 30 hits in one turn, which nothing can survive, or you go for like multiple Rising Dragon Spires, which in which case you pump like multiple 20 hit Spires. And then like obviously that results in having like 60 or 80 hits total over time, which is like very solved. We all know about that. But the other Mei Lin meme, and also there's like the basic attack version that I already alluded to with Selena, where you just go like move cards back. You don't have to go the +1 hit anymore, but you can. But otherwise, there are other, like there's a Rising Dragon Spire that buffs basic attacks, and then you just go crazy on auto attacks. She even has a Flame Dragon Jewel Epiphany that gives you more reward for going individual attacks, so like Ember's Passion Weakness, Tenacity damage, or like crit damage. And then Spirit of Aromata does have a version where you buff your basic attack amount as well, and that can end up stacking very high if you go for that with basic attacks. So the last one that I want to talk about is going to be the Rising Dragon Spire, where you give the next passion card used +1 hit. So this is less of like a genuine meme for Mei Lin and more of a support meme where she supports characters like Selena, like Veronica. This does buff ballistas, so you can make ballistas hit even harder with Veronica if you're playing Mei Lin. This can buff Selena's card on drone bombing, where she gives you plus damage to all enemies and then more damage per passion attack card used. Obviously, this version of drone bombing is kind of a bad version of Mei Lin's Rising Dragon Spire, but it's a different way of achieving it, and it would be funnier to see Selena going crazy and one-shotting stuff than it is Mei Lin, right? So, oh, I totally forgot about that. That Selena meme. I'm gonna try and remember to cut this in, but if I don't, and you're watching this video, it's a very long video, so I'll try and remember to cut this in, but hopefully I pulled the video back to where it's supposed to be. Yeah, so this Rising Dragon Spire could support Mei Lin and Selena very, very well if you want to go for this instead. And then Veronica, being the last character we have, obviously her main use case is going to be drawing infinite with repos and Sir Kowalski. That's very generically accepted. However, if you look at his Sir Kowalski effects, there is one version of Sir Kowalski that's to generate even more ballistas. So imagine you have 4 of these. That means you can, obviously you exhaust the first ballista, you have 2, cast again 3, cast again 4, cast again 5. So you can have up to 5 ballistas for Kowalski. And then you can stack that with reload. Obviously, you can even have you can reload, and then you can also have the version where you create micro ballista, so you can have up to 6 ballistas in hand, which could be very fun. 6 ballistas, and then you just get more reload somehow through playing your other cards. And so 6 ballistas with Veronica's reload mechanic would add up very, very quickly in damage. And obviously, again, it's not like Veronica would be particularly impressive, much like the Selena build, but it would be a different type of Veronica because now it's Veronica DPS instead of Veronica support. And that's just a different way of playing. And it would be really funny watching Veronica go crazy with like 6-7 bullets or 6-7 ballistas. Maybe a lot of them are shelling ballistas, so Veronica attacks like 14 times in one turn, and then she pumps like 12k damage because we all know Veronica's damage is absurdly high for the character she is. And yeah, that's gonna be that tier list. These follow-up tier list that I'll obviously have posted at the very beginning is gonna be like my evaluation of how difficult it will be to get those memes active. So obviously support Mei Lin would only need dupes. You would want the divine dupes, but if you're just doing basic attack slamming and the other slamming, she's only there for support, so she doesn't need divine cards. For the infinite stacking 1.5 million Chizuru hit, she doesn't need divine cards because you take your time stacking anyways, so she doesn't need it. Same thing with Veronica, like you only need to get the ballistas active, and obviously you could go supports, but I guess maybe Veronica belongs down here because you would need divine spells on Veronica because the exhaust card costs 1 mana, so in order to cycle through everything and get the Kowalski's active, you would need some mana cheating, so you do need divines for that. Beryl obviously just needs the cards. Oh, I guess the idea, yeah, Beryl only needs herself. So Tressa's down here because she needs support as well in order to really pop off. But Beryl, you could just play solo Beryl realistically, and she'd generate all the own retain cards she needs. Hugo as well just needs to get copies on his upgrade cards. Yuki as well doesn't really need more draw. Obviously, she needs draw to get her entire deck more reliably, but she is functionally a self-sufficient character. Veronica, as mentioned earlier, would need draw and AP to actually cast all 4 of the ballistas because they do cost 1 mana, so you would need 4 mana overall, which means you need some mana extra. Chizuru, unfortunately, does need to, she has 1 AP, and if you want to cast Chizuru's spells, like you can tell that they both cost 1 mana, so she either need Giga AP support through Nia, or she needs Divine Epiphany on Annihilation to even play this 4 times, and that means that you have to that means you just don't get to play Black Dance 4 times, right? So she needs the Divine Epiphanies or support. Haru she also needs support to draw all their retrieves, but the reason the Giga support in Haru's case is hitting the protein equipment as well, because if you hit the protein equipment, you can get away pretty easily without having to go for like a Divine Epiphany on Anchor Shot or like super AP generation from Nia, because this makes it 0 for the entire turn. So you can move Anchor Shot, play it again for 0. Same idea with Rin, I guess, in the end, but again, if Haru's in here, because of that interaction, then Rin would be in here as well. Tressa only genuinely pops off when there's a lot of healers she can feed off of, and obviously Cassius, so she needs the supports to pop off. Renoa doesn't have really strong draw by herself. She can't have draw and have insane bullet generation, so she needs the supports in order to pull through. Khalipe needs supports in order to draw into her vulture ejections, or else, I mean, I guess you could play, I guess maybe Khalipe doesn't belong up here actually, and I think about it, because she doesn't really necessarily need everything. Orlea needs supports to draw all of her retain card or all the growth accelerations, and also if you have 4 of them, you need some more AP, so that means you need a support. Luke as well. I guess you don't need, oh no, you need divines for the retrieve, right? So you need the supports or dupe to get the AP cheating. And then for these both ones, like these can be functional without having both divines and supports, because if you have like just divine cards or divine epiphany on Luke, you can do like a very soft ugly version or welfare version of the comp, right? With Renoa, if you have draw on, like for example the flower, you can draw through a bit more, so you don't need both. But ideally, everyone here, like every character everywhere, would benefit way more from having dupes and divines and Giga support, but you can make them function with only one of those options. This bottom list needs all of that in order to draw, because they need draw, they need divines in order to get more, or they also need dupes, right? So that's what these characters are used for. You can tell that these are also like the very experimental characters as well, so they would just naturally need everything for them to work. So yeah, that'll be this video. Hopefully, if you guys are trying to look for more fun instead of sweating in Great Rift, this video gave you a lot more ideas and was helpful. Let me know how the rest of that goes and how your holidays were, because I think they'll be posted after Christmas. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.